Hi there. Later, the Grindr scammer now behind bars. First though, a transphobic teacher who just won't stay away from the school that sacked him has now racked up more than €300,000 in fines. Enoch Burke keeps breaking a court order banning him from Wilson's hospital school in Ireland, and he's been jailed several times for contempt. The devout evangelical Christian's refusal to recognise a trans pupil's gender identity back in 2022 ultimately cost him his job. Turned up again there last week.
This is where I should be today. This is my workplace. We're back to school since Thursday. And it's not my belief to call a young boy they. I find that unreasonable. I find it immoral and wrong and harmful to a young boy to call him that.
Burke spent more than 500 days in prison, and a daily fine's now been increased to €2,000. A judge has advised the school to hire some security. Next, 3 months jail for a prolific Grindr scammer who took nearly $120,000 from his victims over the course of a decade. Dong Chao Lee hooked up with men he met on the app in hotels across Australia and photographed their bank cards and ID while they were showering. The 32-year-old's admitted 6 dishonesty offences. A judge said he targeted men who could be considered vulnerable because of their sexuality. And a far-right Polish politician has quit his anti-LGBTQ+ party after announcing he's in a relationship with an intersex woman, so not very on message. David Shostak from the Confederation Party is seeing model Michalina Manios, who was raised as a boy until she was 18 before having surgery to remove the male bits, as she puts it. Amongst his former party's stated enemies are Jews, homosexuals and the European Union. No time to tell you that online advice for schools on supporting transgender pupils has been removed by Northern Ireland's Education Authority. And LGBTQ+ radio station Joy has 8 nominations at the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia Awards. Hi there. Later, be sure to tell young thug if you're gay. He needs to know. First though, shambling gargoyle Graham Linehan and his relentless anti-transgender social media posts. One encouraged the assault of trans people and played a part in his arrest last week on suspicion of inciting violence. The former UK comedy writer tells the BBC he's unrepentant.
I don't regret anything I've tweeted. I will not change the way I speak, the way I act, because of the demands of a few entitled narcissistic men.
He means trans women.
But they're men.
Separately, he went on trial last week for harassing a transgender woman and damaging her phone, which he denies. The 57-year-old's been bailed till October 29th. Next, one of the world's oldest transgender charities is fighting for its survival. The UK's Gyres has been around for almost 30 years, supporting trans and gender non-conforming people, plus it carries out research and training. Needs £10,000 to make it to the end of the year though. A crowdfunder's getting close to that target, and the link's in our show notes. And I'm not saying young thug, who reckons he's not gay, seems to be obsessed with knowing which guys are for some reason, but the rapper thinks it's somehow breaking the bro code if a male friend who seems straight later comes out. He'll kick them to the curb for initially portraying themselves as a man when they're actually a homo. Can't be both, it would seem. Should mention the 34-year-old's keen to stress he's got nothing against gay men, except in his dreams. No time to tell you that. Plans to get tougher on hate crime have been introduced to Ukraine's parliament, with more protections for queer people proposed. And Chris Martin's asked fans at a Coldplay concert to put down their phones unless they're on Grindr. Hi there. Later, transgender bath bombs. First though, the number of queer Americans inquiring about quitting the country for Canada has risen 760% year on year. So says the charity Rainbow Railroad, which helps LGBTQ+ people escape violence and persecution. It's taken about 4,200 calls from individuals in the US up to the end of August, about half the requests received overall. Devin Matthews is their director.
Under this administration, we've seen increasingly concerning anti-LGBTQI sentiment. The request for help coming from within the country has increased significantly.
Thanks to France24, trans people a particular target for the orange convicted felon and sexual abuser who's currently US president. They account for more than 3/5 of the calls to Rainbow Railroad from America. A lesbian couple in Hong Kong who had their son through fertility treatment are going to be jointly named as parents on the birth certificate. Only the mother who carried him is currently listed, even though the other mum donated an egg as part of the process. The judge ruled excluding one parent would violate the boy's privacy and could cause embarrassment. Separately, Hong Kong lawmakers vote later on limited rights for same-sex couples. And a bath bomb in the transgender pride colours is now raising money for trans charities in Australia and New Zealand. Lush says it's a way of pushing back against harmful narratives about transgender and gender-diverse people. Builds on what the cosmetics firm was doing earlier this year for organisations in the UK and Ireland. No time to tell you that. A ban on LGBTQ+ conversion therapy has been backed by lawmakers in the Dutch Parliament's lower house. It's expected to be debated in the Senate, the upper house, in the next few months. Hi there. Later, a setback for queer equality in Hong Kong. First though, anti-LGBTQ+ activist Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. The 31-year-old was at a university in Utah in America for one of his Prove Me Wrong debating events. He was answering a question about mass shootings involving transgender people when he was shot in the neck. And you might find this upsetting.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Kirk opposed what he called the LGBTQ agenda, gay marriage and gender-affirming care, amongst other things. Former US President Barack Obama calls the killing despicable. George W. Bush says violence and vitriol must be purged from the public square. Next, Hong Kong lawmakers have voted against recognising same-sex partnerships. Proposed legislation would have allowed couples who've married overseas to get officially registered. They would have had certain rights, including to visit their other half in hospital and make medical decisions for them. Ahead of the vote, right-winger Holden Chow was very much against.
If today's bill on registering same-sex partnerships is passed, it would be like opening Pandora's box. Our traditional family and ethical values will be breached and collapse.
Thanks to DRM News, Hong Kong's government's got less than 7 weeks to find a way of recognising same-sex marriage, or it'll breach a court order. And award-winning queer animation Lesbian Space Princess is released in Australia and New Zealand today. Princess Syra of Clitopolis, it's not subtle, is on a quest to save her ex-girlfriend from the straight white Malians. The intergalactic journey of self-discovery has been doing the film festival circuit, with release dates for elsewhere in the world before the end of the year. Hi there. Later, which of America's armed forces is the gayest? First though, a third of queer people in the UK are going hungry. Anti-poverty charity Trussell says 34% experienced what they call food insecurity last year, when you lack the money to buy enough to eat. The stat's less than half that for straight people, with a similar situation in the US. Charles Huff runs a food bank at the LGBTQ Community Center of the Desert in Palm Springs, California.
We're looked at as other in a lot of different categories, and LGBTQ plus people, they face challenges with employment, with housing, etc. So it extends into their food life as well.
Thanks to KESQ. Research also finds this is especially an issue for transgender people. Homophobia or transphobia was spouted by lawmakers in at least 51 countries during elections last year. So says a study from Outright International, which promotes queer rights around the world. The rhetoric included attacks on gender ideology and depicting LGBTQ+ identity as a foreign threat. And claims gay and bisexual men make up nearly 10.5% of the US Navy. That's a lot of seamen. If you go by what queer number cruncher @Statistics Urban reckons, it's way more than other branches of America's military. Just under 3/5 of guys in the army are gay or bi, and more than 5% of those in the Air Force. They ruddy love a cockpit. No time to tell you that. In Australia, the lower house of Tasmania's parliaments unanimously passed new hate crime legislation. Hong Kong Lesbian and Gay Film Festival starts today. And Trans Pride Northern Ireland rounds off a fortnight of events tomorrow with a rally in central Belfast. Fill in our survey and help shape the future of Pride Daily. A link's in our show notes. Come on, what could be more exciting than filling in a survey? I'm Kev McGraw. We'll kick off a week of queer cheer on Monday.